What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Creature Cast, the official Console Creatures podcast. I'm your host today, Steve Vegvari, and alongside me, my good pal, Bobby. How the heck are you?
Peachy, my friend. You know, we're just in the throes of snowpocalypse, but
Apocalypse.
I survived. I shoveled, and now I'm ready to dig in with these gentlemen.
Love that. Yes, it's going to be a very exciting episode. We'll be reviewing Avowed from Obsidian Entertainment, and we couldn't do it alone. We had to invite some friends. So introducing Hayes Madsen from Inverse. Thank you so much for joining us. And we've also got returning guest Marcel Dee from a gaming network. Holy hell, what a panel. How are you guys doing?
It feels good to be at the bottom corner. I'm so used to our gaming podcast. It feels good to be a guest, I must say.
That's right. Yeah. No responsibility is nothing. You just show up.
See, I just be like, I'm here.
That's why I don't do my own podcast. I just get to go show up on other people.
Dude, it's the best. It's the best to just
like
show
being
up.
An uncle. It's like being an uncle. You have no responsibility. You just have the fun and you're out.
Here's your child back. They're full of sugar.
And then you walk out. No, we're very appreciative of you both taking the time to talk to us, to talk about Avowed, a game that I myself have been very excited for many months. By the time you are all listening to this, we also have a 30-minute interview with Carrie Patel, game director of Avowed, up on the channel. That's the third time. That's a three for
awesome.
Up
on the
SNL.
channel.
What's the SNL? The three time they get the jackets at SNL.
Is that right? We did not get Carrie a jacket.
We have to get her something.
We did not get Carrie a jacket.
We'll figure something out. Yeah. Maybe I'll get her some coffee beans or something.
Yeah, that's the same.
Beater, have some coffee.
But go check out that interview. It's a great interview between me and Carrie. We talked about some of the inspirations that went into Avowed, and then of course I had to pick her brain and see whether or not they were ever approached to do an Avowed episode of Secret Level. Who knows?
That'll be awesome.
Yeah,
who knows what the answer is? I don't know. I don't even remember. It's been it's been so long since I spoke to her. But no, let's talk about Avowed. It's coming out on February 18th across Xbox, PC. We'll go around the horn, just kind of top level thoughts on how we're feeling about the game, how much time we put into the game, and then we'll go and start picking it apart and talking about our in-depth thoughts. Hayes, I'm going to throw it over to you, get you on the record here. How long have you been playing it? Have you completed it? And what are your kind of like top level thoughts on the game?
I think I'm at about 50 hours now.
Okay.
Not done yet, but I'm almost done. We'll be done in time for the embargo, of course.
Yeah.
But I like it a lot, I think. I have been very vocal about being a huge fan of the Outer Worlds. And this reminds me of the Outer Worlds in a lot of ways. Kind of like, but mixed with Elder Scrolls, I think the formula that I really like is, to me, it feels like an RPG that kind of like cuts a lot of the fat out in a good way. So that's kind of like my basic take at the moment.
Love that. Yeah, a lot to dive in from that as we continue along. But Marcel, how about yourself?
I'm in the same boat as well, but I'm probably around like 20 hours of gameplay. Obviously, you have the option to, if you want to blitz through, but I find if you makes your life a little bit difficult, if you go through the main story without doing some side quests to kind of buff yourself up. But I do get the same feeling of like Outer Worlds mixed with like a little Skyrim. Like I can see this being one of the games like, hey, does it play Avowed? Does your fridge play Avowed? Because like it's just that much fun. I'm having a good time with it.
Awesome. Yeah, Bobby, how about yourself?
I think we're all in the same boat. I think we all kind of really like it. I'm doing kind of a weird thing, so I'm actually doing 2 playthroughs. So I'm doing one on Steam Deck and one on my Series S. So I'm doing 2 different builds, and that's kind of why I haven't been able to finish it. Right, so like that's kind of why I'm taking my time. But I mean, I'm playing it 2 different ways. I'm finding both ways to be vastly different, and I'm loving every minute of it. Like from the start screen to where I am right now. It's been one of the best games I've played. I'd say as far back as last February with Final Fantasy Rebirth. Like it's standing to all my expectations. It's hitting all the itches I have, it feels like he said, all the fat's been trimmed off, so it feels like it's Skyrim with no filler, and that I've been waiting for, like, what were we in 13 years later?
Yeah. If you can believe it.
Years later, I'm
my god,
getting the Wagyu beef version of Skyrim. So that we're with that right now.
Yeah. I think we're all in the same general area. I think, Hayes, you're a little bit further than the rest of us in terms of like progression through the game. I would be a little further on, but early on I hit a progression bug where I just could not speak to a certain NPC and get through the main story. Had it been like a side quest or something, I would have just powered through, but I actually had to go back. I think I want to say the last like load that would have actually let me talk to that NPC would have been like 6 or 7 hours. So I had quite a lot to redo because I started the quest, got like halfway through, started doing like a bunch of side quests, and then I was like, oh shit, I'm completely cooked here. Like I just cannot progress. So I had to go back, revert to an old save, and then catch up. But aside from that, the other thing, the in-game clock completely broken. It's telling me 72 hours. I was like, listen, I have been no-lifing this game after traveling a lot, but I know for a fact I have not been playing 72 hours.
Yeah, mine says I played 4 days, and it's like,
I'm
like 15 days. I'm like, that's not right. Yeah.
No. I mean, at a certain point, I'm sure.
I've been recorded. I'm like, I don't have 15 days worth of recordings. Like, there's no way.
It's just that you black out, and all of a sudden you just like come back. You're like, oh my god,
we didn't get this for 15 days yet. Like, what's going on?
It's an avowed K-hole you just fall into, and then you just pop back out.
You just
like,
pop back out. Like, what happened? It's summertime. Where have you been?
So definitely have not spent 72 hours in this. I'm probably around the same time frame as you, Marcel. But top level, I mean, like I knew this was going to be a Steve-ass game coming into it. I love Western RPGs, especially basically anything Avowed kind of touches, whether or not it's their, Outer Worlds. Even Pillars of Eternity to a certain extent. I played, I enjoyed. Didn't fall in love with Deadfire, but I enjoyed it for what it was. But then, everything else Obsidian does, I just feel like it's just a massive boon for Microsoft or Xbox players or just players in general, because I think this was easily one of the best acquisitions that Microsoft could have ever made. And it's just paying off tenfold. And coming into Avowed, I think, this is exactly what I think we're all saying, is that this is a Western RPG, an open world-esque Western RPG, just distilled to all the best points. I have some criticisms of the game as a whole, but for the most part, I've been having so much fun. It's rewarding in its combat, it's rewarding in its progression, its lore, and it is giving you that gray area to play around in with like morals and choices that you're making. And there's just so much to unpack in this game, I find.
And then I was about to say, like, we're also getting Outer Worlds 2 this year as well.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
Insane. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Is there a date on that or no? Do we even know? But
no, it's just late 2025.
To be fair, I mean, I'm sure there's. I mean, I think
it's just this year.
Yeah. So I mean, and we can go back to the the interview with Carrie that Steve did last week, but like she was basically saying like they have teams working on these. So like I feel like Microsoft did the best thing they could have done by acquiring them, and now there's enough manpower to just push these games out without affecting quality. And like I think that's where we're starting to see right is it's finally paid off. Like we have Avowed at the start, and I'm sure it'll be by the end we'll get.
Is Josh Sawyer's team on?
I don't know, actually. Let's check it out.
Is Josh Sawyer's team on Outer Worlds 2?
I don't believe so.
Because I know he didn't work on Avowed.
No.
He
was doing Pentiment, correct?
Okay.
He doesn't say what he's working on.
I didn't know if they moved to that after. I don't know if they've said.
I don't think they've said, to be honest. I'd be curious though. Yeah.
I know there are a few, because I have a friend who works for Obsidian. There are a few who are they have their hands on multiple, like they worked on this and they worked on Outer Worlds 2 and everything. So there are like a few people who kind of bounce around But like,
sure.
I mean, I don't know the size of the studio, but like, it sounds like they have a good number of people like and to be pumping on. Like, I mean, I know we all know Avowed was pushed back a little bit and everything. But it's just the fact that you're pumping quality like this is very impressive.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. It's impressive. I mean, it feels like it's pretty finely tuned from my experience. I don't like Steve. I didn't have any game breaking issues, but just a lot of there's jank. There's definitely jank, and I'm kind of glad it's there, but it's also still taking away from the experience.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about some of the, I don't know, performance of the game and stuff like that.
Small bugs, but
Okay.
Yeah.
Hayes, what have you experienced?
huge progression.
There's one. There's
but I've had a couple.
There's one right there.
There's one.
Are we losing them? We lost them.
We might have lost
There's
them.
one. Can you hear me?
Know.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh,
maybe not. I don't know.
That's Microsoft trying to squash his voice right
there.
now.
It is. Yeah.
So there was one bug I had where I was in a dungeon.
Okay.
And I picked up you pick up a weapon and it closes the door and an ambush happens. And then after I beat all the enemies, the door just didn't open. So I had to like completely restart the dungeon. But the main thing I've noticed, I don't know if you guys have noticed too, where there's like characters who I don't even know how to describe it. Like their animations are very weird. Like almost the frame rate for certain characters just like does not match the game's frame. You have that too?
I think I do.
Yeah.
I've noticed, and I think this is the first thing I asked you when we got the code. I'm like, check out the frame rate because something doesn't seem right. Because like the world's fine, but the characters, they're like kind of like stop motion. I feel.
Yeah, and it's not every character, but occasionally I'll have a character.
It's not, but like I'm playing on. I think it's the balance one, which is the 120 frames, whatever.
Me too. Yeah.
It's mostly smooth, but like I feel like there's something going on with the characters, and I feel like it's tied to that third person mode that they're trying to push into this. And I feel like it's conflicting with the code for the standard mode, which is obviously first person. So I feel like something's like interacting with it, but like obviously we can't confirm that, right? But that's just kind of my guess. It's sporadic. So like I was talking to Kai a couple times, which is one of the companions, and like he would have that issue, and then I'd be talking to a couple of the merchants, and they would have it in Paradise, and then later on, I'm talking to some NPCs trying to solve a quest. I think it was a priest, and then basically like he would freeze, and like he'd be talking, but like nothing's happening with his character.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, that's weird.
It's very bizarre because like I'll be in a conversation and one person will have that, and then it'll switch to the other character, and they're fine.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I don't think I've ever noticed that, to be honest.
I assume the three of you are on Xbox, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, I'm on PC. Oh yeah, that's right. So for me, I haven't had that issue whatsoever on PC.
The only thing that I have had, and it wasn't even like a big thing, it kind of just like went away completely, was, I'm trying to not get into spoilers or anything, but you have these like dream sequences and stuff like that. And in those sequences, the dialogue, the text would show up on the screen with subtitles and everything, but the dialogue, like the audio wouldn't come through. And it was just a couple scenes that I was like, oh, okay, I guess it's just not
I have
there.
that too.
Yeah. Okay.
That has happened to me for one of the dream sequences, or even when like if they're talking to you,
yes.
One of them was like, oh, just complete silence. All right. Like I guess I'm thinking this thought here.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you like I ran into like a symbol where I've never even seen the symbol, or they never explained the symbol before. It is actually where in the area that we're both in right now, Steve. That is like this purple item.
I know
like,
exactly what you're.
I was like, what am I supposed to do with this thing? I went through the whole tutorial like list to look for that symbol. It's nowhere to be found.
So I had the exact same thing. I was throwing items at this and everything,
blowing up everything.
we got there a smidge too early.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
The next.
Okay.
You get a way to do it. Yeah.
But to be fair, like I had the same issue early on because there's like this it's like Kai's companion ability, and like they never explain it. I feel like I never saw the tutorial, So I would like throw grenades at this thing, and nothing would work. And it's just like, no, you got to use the companion ability, which is like a fire thing that burns things away. And I'm like, well, that was never explained. So it's like, it's small things like that. I feel like the tutorials are really good, but things were, not included. Like important, like, systems like this where it's like, here's a companion ability, but we didn't tell you what it does.
Well, one of the things. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you can go ahead.
No, I was just going to say one of the things that I really like about this game, and this is similar to, and I know some people are going to throw some flack at me for even saying this, but I love there's a comparison that I can draw here between Avowed and like Breath of the Wild, where it's just the logic of it all. Where to our point, like when you come up against a shrub that has the fire symbol, it's like, oh, of course you can use a fire spell to get through it, or Kai's ability, which has like the fire spread and stuff like that, a fire bomb or something like that. Or even like traversing over some water to get to a treasure chest or something. Use an ice bomb, freeze up the water. I love the logic behind it, where it's like, well, if I feel like I could do it, I could. Or using an electric bomb when there's enemies like in a little pool of water and stuff like that. I love playing with the elements, or playing with the world and the logic behind it. I find that those kinds of systems so satisfying, especially when Breath of the Wild leveraged them so well, that seeing them come over to Avowed, I'm like, oh hell yeah, this is so cool.
Yeah, and the good thing about that, because that's exactly what I was going to say, is that they always make sure you have a way to do it.
Yeah,
so it's not like, oh, I have to go back to camp and get Kai. Like, you can use his ability. Or there's grenades that start fires, or you have fire spells, or like, so there's always a way that you can harness it, no matter what your kind of like build is.
Yeah, with the one exception of exactly what Marcel's saying, and that's the only time the game fumbled me. Where I was just like, "What's going on here?"
What am I able to do?
Honestly, an hour later, you you meet the companion, and it's like, "Oh, I can do this." I was like, now I have to remember where I was. Like,
well, in my case, I can't, because I may have picked something that doesn't allow me to go back there. So,
okay,
yeah,
cool.
I did that. I was like, yeah, no one wins. All right, I'm taking that
away
is
from so you. Funny. Yeah, no, okay, so that's exactly where it was. Yeah, now I'm remembering.
Yeah,
got it. Well,
yeah, that's fine.
We'll never know.
No one gets it. It's okay.
I want to talk about some of the systems, because a lot of what Obsidian and Avowed kind of prioritized here was the customization of certain loadouts and weapon sets, and being able to customize or like tailor to your personal preference, whether it's using a sword and a shield, a sword and a gun, a wand and a spell book, or having a bow and arrow in your back. I'm kind of curious to know, like, what are you guys playing with? What kind of builds are you experimenting with? Have you found something that really works for you? Bobby, how about you?
So my first character is primarily melee, which is sword and shield. That's usually what I love to do. But then my backup has been, and I know you guys understand what I'm saying, is the spell book and the wand are so overpowered in this game. I'm just destroying things that are just flying at me. So like, that's my main build. On a Steam Deck, I'm doing primarily just a ranger build, so it's just bow and arrow and dagger. Because I think there's not dagger. It's like a short sword, I think it's whatever it is.
I think it's a dagger. No,
there's dagger and there's sword.
Yeah, there's dagger and swords. Yeah,
so it's a mix of both of those, but it's all short swords and stuff like that. But like, and they're all played vastly differently, I feel, because the skills, you have access to like at least 10 skill trees. With there's a lot of stuff, right? I mean, for every not skill trees, but like
there's like a fighter, a ranger, a wizard, and then you have your godlike spells.
Yeah, so you have a lot of that stuff. So I'm putting skill points in different things, and they play so differently from my experience. And like, it's been fun just focusing on, because like I said, normally I play sword and shield. That's kind of the thing. I like being the tank, but having this ability now where I could just be a mage and just I'm able to mow everything down, or I'm using my bow and arrow and I'm close to like 2-shotting everything, 3-shotting everything. It's been fun. It's a good mix. I do like the classes. I feel the skills are pretty interesting. I mean, there's a good focus on stamina and a lot of the skills are like they're just a lot of fun to play around with. I do like what I'm kind of curious to see if there's gonna be any end game skills or anything that's not really on display yet, but like that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. I feel like I'm hoping there's some stuff we'll unlock later on.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, like I feel like there's variety here, so you're gonna have at least a couple playthroughs where you can play, and the experience is vastly different, right? So I mean, that's kind of the one thing I'm always hoping for in these games, and I feel like this one does a little bit better than say something like Dragon Age, which I just didn't find that. But that's where I was.
Yeah. How about you, Marcel?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as well. I always figured that if you could make like a sword and shield style game, or if you can make sword and shield playthrough fun, then I feel like all the other weapons, like I feel like it's like almost like the piano of like gameplay. Like if this is fun, then the other instruments are gonna be fun too as well.
Yeah,
and that's the same thing I've been getting with this game with the sword and shield, especially with the charging or different type of swords you have as well. Like I have a sword that has fire on it. So I don't like half the time I'm just burning up people just to add like that ability. That's definitely saved me a lot because like the whole burning effect. Well, like you're clearly like, oh, the sword's not strong enough in this current time, but like the consistent burning keeps adding that more damage. Definitely helps you out, and it definitely saved me in a lot of scenarios. I have dived in with the bow and arrow. I kind of prefer more of the revolver more than the bow and arrow, to be honest. But besides that, the gameplay has been it's been really solid, I would say.
Yeah. Hey, Hayes, any differences here? How are you playing?
Actually, yeah, I'm doing it a bit different. My primary weapon, I use the rifle.
Nice.
Oh wow.
And then my secondary weapon, I have the spell book and a mace that I'm using.
Oh, cool.
That's
rifle.
I never did that.
And what I really like about the skill trees in this is that you don't have to lock into anything at all.
No.
Like you can mix and match as much as you want. So like my rifle, I have skills on it where like I've increased the damage, I think, by 40% that all rifles and bows do. And then my shots ricochet between multiple enemies and they cause poison damage. And then I have the spell book that I use, and I found this special mace that is really strong too. And also if there's a few spells that you like, you can invest in those spells and then you have access to them at all times and don't have to use the book.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. I like the combat a lot in this game. I am hoping if this game ever gets DLC, I've played a lot of Pillars of Eternity and there's some classes in there that I really like. One is the Chanter, which is where you can use any weapons in the game as the Chanter in Pillars, but you also have these like song abilities where you have songs that buff and actively like affect the party or affect enemies. I think it would be cool to see how something like that could work in this kind of combat system.
Yeah. As for me, my primary is a regular sword and a spell book, and I'm just going like complete fire class. Like Marcel, I think we're running the same sword with the fire ability on it, and then my full spell book is just like all fire damage. So I'm just using the elements against enemies, and then for my secondary, I'm using a great sword because I just love. I found one that's like really powerful and has like a great like block ability to it.
Right.
I've experimented with almost everything, probably with the exception of the two-handed, the great sword. I was really stoked on the pistol and the gunplay based on previews and based on trailers that we had been seeing. I'm kind of disappointed by it, and maybe it's just because like it's a bit too sluggish for the damage output, or at least the pistols that I've been kind of using, because I do feel like there is a certain difficulty spike with the combat, and I just feel like at least with the ranged weapons that I've been finding haven't really helped me like overcome those difficulty spikes. So I've been kind of just doing like melee focus with some spells in there as well, but I'm having a blast with it. And to your point, Hayes, that it's so nice that if I'm wanting to prioritize like two-handed weapons and stuff like that, I can respec my character, put a whole bunch of skill points into that. If I get bored and I want to switch it up, just respec again and just kind of build and curate my character based on how I'm feeling at the time. Like I think I've respec 2 or 3 times now just to kind of play with different abilities and everything. And to your point, like the ability to have spells and have abilities not locked to the spell book is great. I just wish that there were more ways to bind abilities, because I feel like it's very limited to have like one ability, like one button press on the D-pad assigned to, say, a companion ability, and then one to your personal ability. Otherwise, you have to bring up the weapon, or not the weapon wheel, but the ability wheel, go through it, pick through it. And I'm like, it's just a little too cumbersome. I wish it was kind of like maybe you press almost like the spell book in it of itself, like press the bumper, and then you have like a full array of just your weapons lined up on, like, hot fixed buttons.
I do think it is weird that they don't have more like hotkey systems. I do wonder how much of that maybe comes over from like this sprouting off of Pillars of Eternity. Pillars of Eternity is very classic CRPG.
Oh yeah,
huge, lots of menus. So I don't know. I agree. I think there should be a way more hotkeys.
Yeah. That's the only thing I wish was changed with the combat. With this other exception, I just find stealth completely useless in this game. I don't know about you guys, but like I just feel like there's no point of being stealthy, even though there's a stealth system in the game.
I was about to say I did discover like you get like a secret like jab in the back move. I didn't realize that until like 10 hours into the game. I'm like, oh, I could do that. I had no idea, because the whole time I'm like, why am I able to hide in the grass? Like, well, like nothing. Like people always just sees me. They're like, oh, there he is. Like, or my companions are just in the middle of the road. I'm like, would you come in the grass? Stop ducking over here. What are you doing?
Yeah, because there's, to my knowledge, there's not a real emphasis within like the skill trees or anything like that. There's no passive abilities to being stealthy. And to your point, anytime I'm in the bushes and I'm walking around, it's just like I'm just caught instantly. So I'm like, I'm just never going to be a stealthy.
Yeah, if you do get to sneak behind someone, you do get like a godlike ability to like almost one shot them, like a little sneak, like a little like backstab move and everything. That takes like a good chunk of their health. Sometimes it does one shot some enemies, but depending on their strength as well, you can take away like a good chunk of their life.
Okay. It's mostly just like a combat opener, though, because even if you do that, everyone else sees you when you do it. So
you're screwed. Yeah, exactly.
So this is very much a game where like, you're getting in the thick of things. That's the kind of the point, I think.
For sure. Yeah. Has anyone else found the difficulty curve in this game? Like,
that's actually the thing I'm kind of the least hot on, I think, is the kind of the enemy progression, where the enemy's levels are all based on equipment,
right?
So you have to upgrade your equipment to that rank in order to like do proper damage to them. And it's not terrible, but I think just like a simple like level progression honestly might have been more to my taste.
Yeah, I'm with you completely, because I do feel like it is a progression system that takes a lot of getting used to, because for the first, I don't know, probably 5 to 10 hours, I didn't fully understand it, where I'm like, I'm leveling up my weapons, I'm finding better weapons, I'm leveling up. Why aren't I feeling like I'm progressing as like a character? Why don't I feel more powerful? And then I finally got invested into it. The counter to that, at least if from my opinion, is that I feel like this is one of the best Western RPG games that makes me want to go out, find items, craft, steel ingots and stuff like that, and then actively like increase my weapons, rather than, I'm just going to find a better sword and it's got a better stat boost, well, throw away the other sword. Like it makes me want to keep a hold of like a piece of weapon or a piece of armor and actively upgrade it, versus just kind of cycling through them all within a couple of hours. So
I definitely agree. I have been getting feelings about that, where I'm just like, man, I just want to upgrade the sword now, or let me upgrade my armor. I go back to different areas. Do I sell certain items as well? Which also the game doesn't really tell you that you can sell as well. Like, and I found as well, like I didn't find until like a little bit later. You're like, oh, I can sell stuff. Like no one ever be like, oh, would you like to buy or sell? To me, it's just so blatantly obvious. But like this one, like it's just a button change, which I never end up pressing, because those defaulted straight to buying.
That's right.
So, but no, I'll definitely agree to the fact that there's times where I'm just like, oh, let me go do this quest because I know it'll lead me to more material for me to upgrade.
Yeah, I do think the exploration really supports it in general too, because like every chest you open is not just a single item. Like every chest you get an item and you get resources, and so most of the time when you're exploring and finding stuff, you're gathering a lot of materials without really having to go out of your way to find them.
Yeah. Well, that's a great segue, because I do want to talk about the exploration of this game, because I think that even compared to Outer Worlds, this is probably a way more satisfying exploration loop. And I feel like the maps in and of itself, they're gorgeous. They're all they all have like different variety of things to look at and do. And I mean, it's hard for me not to compare it straight to Starfield, which is another game of its like that's modernized and very recent. And unlike Starfield, I feel like every single place I go in Avowed, I'm rewarded by exploring it, whether or not it's a little house that I see up on the hill, whether it's this big tower, whether or not it's a dungeon, where like anything I do and anywhere I go to, I find that I'm finding something at the end of it, is the carrot at the end of the stick, that's actually rewarding, whether it's materials, whether it's a new weapon, whether it's one of the totems that give passive little buffs to you at the camp. I feel like no matter what I'm doing, I'm getting something out of it, versus, you know, Starfield, I never felt that, where it was just kind of all busy work to a certain degree. Yeah, how do you guys feel about that? Do you feel like exploration is worth it most of the time?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's ever guiding you. I feel like it's just like, you know, you have this quest, it kind of gives you an idea what to do, and then you set on that direction, and as you're exploring, like 6 or 7 things will kind of pop up and kind of pull you away from the beaten path. So it's like you're like, well, let's see, you know, like what's in this cavern here, and you'll go into this cavern and you'll find like a piece of gear, and you'll fight a couple enemies, and there's a bunch of lore in every cave. So it's like, I mean, you're rewarded for exploring, and I feel like I never got that in Starfield. I mean, Starfield was just I don't know, it just felt very autonomous. It was never as rewarding. At least that's how I played it. And yeah, I feel like as you discover new bits and pieces on the map, like you're finding worthwhile things there. Like there's always something interesting wherever you're looking, and it's rare for a game to fill like a pretty decent sized map with things that you want to go and do, right? And that's kind of the biggest testament to Obsidian, right? You have a map that's not only gorgeous, but it's inviting you to like find every secret that's hidden around there. And yeah, that's kind of how I want my games going forward, right? It's just like it's not just a map with checkpoints and checklists to clear out. It's a map that's really unknown territory, and you want to discover what's out there, and that's a rare thing these days, I feel.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think the word I'd use for it is like intentionality.
Yeah.
And I think over the last few years, I've really realized that I think open zone games are much more attractive to me than open world.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Whether it's like Dragon Age Inquisition or even Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I think the act of being able to have these zones where you are hand designing everything based on that. You don't have to have everything fit into the seamless world. You can have these zones, and then every quest is designed to play into the tone and the theme of that zone. And every piece of exploration bases around it. And so that's I ended up liking the exploration a lot more than I thought I would in this game, simply because it just everything flows so well, and it never really feels like you're having to go out of your way, because the way the game like strings along quests, quests take you to almost every part of every zone. And so you're able to see and do everything, but it never feels overwhelming.
Right. Yeah. Everything feels like it's obtainable, clearing out the map. You're going to all the different like POIs and everything. Yeah. Marcel, how do you feel about it?
No, it's been a great time just exploring thing, and like even seeing like how your characters kind of interact to where you're exploring. Like it's just so like it just kind of makes you feel like you're a part of that world. Like I don't know if any of you went up the light tower. But like even just like the music's getting all amped up, the higher and higher you're going, and then when you finally see the whole land, like the music reaches its climax, or your character who's your companion with you is like kind of doing he's like leaning over and looking on the world and everything. Like wow, what like and even there like interacting in the world, like, wow, what a great view. This takes me back to like, you get like a little hidden lore of this for like doing that little extra exploration. Or like, I can remember the hunter's name. Well, he eventually joins you as well. He's sitting down because like he's always complaining about stuff. He's like, I'm gonna have a seat right here, type of thing. Because like he's always
good old
grumpy.
Marius.
Yeah,
good old Marius. You know,
grumpy. You know.
Yeah.
So like, anyway, moving on. And like, okay, buddy. Like every time, all right.
He has a pretty good reason to be grumpy. You'll find out.
Absolutely. But like, I just like the fact when he's done this conversation. He's like, all right, moving on. I'm like, bro, what? You just started this conversation.
I think,
sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I think lore is something particularly interesting to talk about with this game because the lore of Pillars of Eternity, which is at play in here, is honestly like some of the most incredible lore I've ever seen in a video game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Obsidian released 2 like lore Bibles for Pillars of Eternity years ago, and I read those things back to back years ago. And so while you can play Avowed completely blind, you can totally go into it without knowing anything about Pillars. I think what's interesting is that there are a lot of little details for people that know those games or like really know the lore. And the way that they tuck it into like little books and little side quests and the side quests also can be surprisingly like important and lengthy at times and feed back into the main story. Not quite on a Witcher 3 level, but getting there.
Comparable, yeah.
Yeah.
To your point, I had only played a little bit of Deadfire. I certainly am not brushed up on the lore of the Pillars series and everything. But one of the things I absolutely love and have loved since, I think the first main game that I've seen really do this, it was Final Fantasy 16, where it actively gives you like an encyclopedia as you're going through it. I love the fact that as you're interacting with characters, talking to them, going through the text dialogue and everything, you can bring up this kind of like encyclopedia of terms, and it gives you backstory and stuff like that. I know obviously a lot of people will probably gloss over this and just be like, I'm confused about what the hell is going on in this universe. But I like the fact that at least Obsidian is like, we know. We know that we are super nerdy about all this stuff. We're throwing some very high level fantasy like concepts at you and everything. Here, we're going to set you up for success as much as we can. Now it's up to you guys.
I love the fact that any highlighted like word that's green, any word that's highlighted green is basically like, oh, let me search this out. Like, what does this mean? Like, oh wait, you called me an idiot. That's what you did there. Or like, it's really neat. So
one of my favorite ones was like I was talking to I think a guard, and he was like, "What are you smoking, Svet?" And I was like, "What the hell are you talking?" And you pull it up, and it's like, "Oh, it's this drug." And I was like, "Oh my god, this is incredible."
Honestly, every RPG should have like encyclopedia.
Seriously,
like
yes,
100%.
Put it in everything.
Yeah, I 1000% agree. But I think there's so much lore, and kind of to Bobby's point earlier about exploration is that no matter where you go, whether it's something a passive place you're exploring or something tied to a side quest or the main quest, you're always going through. You're finding. If you wanted, you can read these, little diaries and stuff like that. Get a lot of really cool contextual information. They're great, and I mean, this just goes back to what Obsidian is known for: is storytelling. It's creating rich experiences based on narrative, and a lot of the side quests and even main quests, they get to points where like you're making decisions off the cuff and everything. And one of the things I really love is that it never tells you when you're making a decision. Like everything is in the back end. So when you're making a choice, you don't know what it's going to affect, how it's going to affect different characters. I remember going through, with no spoilers, going through a side quest, interacting with the character. And I was like, just get out of here and everything. And then hours later, in a totally different zone, I crossed paths with this character. I was like, oh shit, it's you. Like, I find that so cool that everything seems, to your point, is intentional. Like you're making decisions, you're crafting this world, you're making your own story. And that's something that Obsidian has done ever, going back all the way to Fallout New Vegas and stuff. Like you have ownership over this story. And I love that stuff.
Yeah. And much to its point, I feel like I'm we can talk about this later, but like the music ties into the story so like fluidly. It feels like its own character itself. Like every time like the music swells, it's like, well, I need to know what's going on because it's obviously tied to an important moment, and and that's such an important thing for me is having that music tell the story of these characters, and like that's what I feel like Obsidian really nailed in this game, and much to the point, like I don't remember much of the Outer Worlds. I don't remember much of even Pentiment, like stuff like their games are amazing, but they never have that lasting impression on me with their music. This is the first time I'm like, I need the soundtrack day one. It's emotional. Like there's a lot of emotional moments I've hit, and I'm like, this is great.
Yeah, the music is stellar. I love the soundtrack, at least so far. It's been a lot of impactful moments have been
tied to the music, right? It's like
tied to the music,
and it's like I said, it's its own character. It is as important as the story you're exploring as the envoy. And I this is definitely my first foray into this franchise. So like I have Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2 ready to go. I'm gonna be dabbling back in them, and I want to see if it matches that earlier experience in those games, because I don't have much experience with them, but like I'm more than ready to just consume as much of this world as I can now, because it's Avowed is a great first introduction to the series for someone like me who's never played them. So it's like I'm looking forward to seeing how the narratives of those games are explained, how they're told, like how the music is, how the characters are. And I mean, I've heard nothing but good things about these games, so like I'm really excited to see where like what I've missed out on.
Sure.
I could definitely see this becoming its own like series in a way. Like even if you don't name it Avowed, but like you have it in the Avowed like universe, I could definitely see this becoming its own like show or movie or something like that. So
100%.
Yeah.
This will be the next Amazon Prime original.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, and I would love to see that. Like, I feel like Prime is good for video game adaptations, but there's nothing that's as like I like, even to the point like I don't like Wheel of Time. Is that what it's
Wheel
called?
of Time, yeah.
I tried to watch it. I couldn't get into it. Rings of Power, I mean, it's beautiful, but it's boring as hell. I would love to see I would love to see Avowed just on Prime. I feel like that's a great kicking point for the series is to branch out to transmedia, put it on TV.
I'm really interested to see if this does surge interest into Pillars of Eternity.
Me too.
It will, because I download both games right away. I'm like, oh, I have them, but I'm going to play them. So like,
and what it means for like the series at large, because both Pillars games were crowdfunded entirely.
I remember that,
and that was before Obsidian was owned by Microsoft. So the only way they could get those games made was to crowdfund them. But now, if Avowed takes off, like I don't know, does that mean more for the Pillars universe as a whole? I hope so, honestly.
I mean, I do too. I think, this being the first Microsoft Game Studio published game under Obsidian Entertainment, the first Western RPG from them, I think bodes a lot that, they're putting this much into it. There's definitely a future for this series, I think, one way or the other. I hope that at very least, people invest themselves into Avowed, and maybe to Marcel's point that this just becomes kind of its own spin-off series where there are more stories told in the Living Lands, or even just other areas of this universe. And then hopefully at a certain point, we get Pillars 3 and it's just a Xbox back published game. And I think that would be something really cool. I would love to see a Pillars game with like a Microsoft budget.
Yeah, at this point, if Avowed does well, and you look at the success of Baldur's Gate 3, I don't know how you don't.
Right. Like I don't know how you don't put everything into it. And with all due respect, and I mean this Obsidian, with all due respect, if Outer Worlds can get a sequel, you're getting Pillars 3, right? Like, come on.
100%. I hope this is an indicator that we don't. You know what? I'm going to say this with all respect to Obsidian and Microsoft. I don't want New Vegas 2 from them. I don't want them touching Fallout. Like, they have their own thing now. Let them focus on that and let them grow their own franchise. Because, like, honestly, as much as I would kill for that game, for New Vegas 2, like, I want more Avowed. Like, I would love a sequel.
That's just crazy, but okay, I'll let it slide.
I mean, it was like, if there was ever a New Vegas 2 by Obsidian, I would lose my mind.
I know you would.
But like, I want more Avowed. Like, I feel like the world of Avowed is just it's there's just so much potential there now, and it's like, and I want to see where else they could take it. Like, hey, you obviously read all the lore, but like, there's obviously different continents they can go to, right? So it's like, I think there's like a Deadfire archipelago. I think.
Yeah, that's where the second game is set.
Yeah,
I would love to see Avowed in that world, right? In that pelago, whatever it is, and I feel like that would be really cool.
Yeah.
But or like, yeah, establish something new. But like, as much as I like Fallout, like the last couple of years, it's just been rough. I mean, I fell off pretty hard with Fallout 4, and it's just been hard to go back to the series. It's like, I would rather have like a sci-fi fantasy game like this than whatever Fallout is now.
I'll allow it, but I don't agree.
Yeah.
I want to make a bold proclamation here, and maybe some people will argue with me. Maybe a lot of audience members will yell at me. I don't care. Kai is the best companion since Garrus, and I'm putting my fucking stamp on this.
Yeah,
and I will die on this hill.
Is he also voiced by Garrus?
Yeah,
voiced by Garrus.
I was like, wait a minute.
And I know, but goddamn, is this guy one of the best, coolest companions with one of the coolest arcs?
And he's so chill. He's so chill.
Very chill.
I'm so down with this dude. Like, I ride or die.
In a lot of ways, he kind of is like Garrus, and I think that's why it works so well.
Yeah.
And he also has that vibe of like, yeah, he's your best bro, you know, like,
right?
He's your.
He doesn't
right
judge.
man.
He's just like, I don't judge. He's like, I'm just here.
Yeah.
But no, I was going through his companion quest, and I was wrapping it up earlier before we started recording. I was like, God damn, this is one of the most rewarding, I think, companion quest lines that I've gone through in quite some time.
Yeah. My favorite thing about the companions in this game, and I actually talked to Carrie about that. I did an interview with her and Fergus recently as well, and they talked about how they wanted to give this sense that like these characters don't just have a relationship with you; they have a relationship with each other. And I think that's something this game does really well. Especially even like Kai and Marius have a whole history together. Even just recruiting Marius, Kai's like, "Hey, we should go get my friend. He would know what to do." And you just go meet Kai's friend, and then he's your new party member. And throughout the game, like, they will constantly talk to each other. And Kai and Marius will have like Obi-Wan and Anakin moments where they're like, "Hey, you remember when we were in that like nest of spiders and how we got out of that?" And it's just constant things like that. With all four of them too. All four of them all have interesting relationships with each other.
Yeah.
It does make what feels like a big world feel a little smaller, and I like that. Is that you're going to different locations, and then all of a sudden, you know, you're going up to like a guard, for instance, and he's like, "Oh, you're with Kai. I know this guy and everything," and like it makes it feel like this world actively exists, whether or not like long before you even got involved in stuff like that. I really like that that there's history there amongst these characters. Although I will say Marius kind of sucks. Like, I do not vibe with Marius whatsoever. Kai, though, he's my bro. He's my
Marius grew on me.
Marius would be like, "Oh, I hate this town, but the food's great there." I'm like, "What the hell?" Like, okay, dude.
We all know a guy like Marius, man. We all know someone like that.
And if you don't, you're the Marius.
Yeah, you're the Marius.
Like, like the guy who's always like, you know, this is pretty good, but you know what would be better.
Yeah. How did you like the writing of the game?
I think it's one of their best written games. I have no complaints. I feel, and this ties back into the lore. Like, everything is explained. I love the history, the lore and history button where you press it and it tells you everything. Like, if you're going through a lengthy conversation, keywords always fill out, and you can learn about them, and it's just like, okay. And then it's explained in a way that it anyone can understand it. And I feel like that's kind of like the biggest hurdle a game of this caliber probably faces. Like, if you're putting it someone unfamiliar with it, you need to be able to break it down for them in as simple terms as possible, and it does that really well, and it explains the story at every step pretty incredibly.
Yeah, I also met with the dialogue as well. Like, there's no holding back in this game. Like, if they want to get loot, they get loot as possible if they wanted to, or if they like, obviously serious scenarios, the game will be like very serious as well. But like, it's a good range. Like, they're not sugarcoating anything here with this game here. Like, if someone likes you, they'll let you know and everything.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I like about Avowed over Outer Worlds is its restraint with humor, where I think Outer Worlds went a little too hard on, the satire, the commentary of the world. I liked it for it being this this pseudo counterpart to Fallout, where Fallout is very tongue in cheek,
and all these. It was satire. It was all satire.
But I like Avowed for its seriousness. It treats the lore, it treats the story very earnestly. There are funny moments, whether or not intentional or not. Like, I think that through the dialogue, there can be humor there and some levity with its characters and stuff like that. But it's a serious game and with serious consequences and a serious story to tell. And I really like that. I like the restraint, is that we are seeing a very different side of Obsidian versus, even Pentiment and what Josh Sawyer did with the game there, in that it was just a way more tongue-in-cheek kind of take on the story. But this Avowed is very... We're telling a fantasy story here, so I really like the dialogue of the game.
I think a big part of why the writing worked so well for me is that there's some really compelling narrative themes at the core of the game. That again, there's an intentionality of everything funneling into. What's most fascinating to me is you're sent to the Living Lands as this envoy of the Adirian Empire, and the entire game constantly makes you grapple with the fact of my empire's a little tyrannical, and am I okay with that, or am I not okay with that? And so much of the game is based around that question of defying or bowing to authority, essentially.
Right. Yep.
And I think that's super compelling here.
Yeah, of course, and it all goes back to Obsidian and its ability to kind of play the middle ground, or at least give you a middle ground, and you can kind of choose whether go for the white, black, or the gray area of all of these conflicts, all of these dialogue options and stuff like that. That's something I've always respected about Obsidian, is this ability to kind of present these moral quandaries for you and then have you go through them and sometimes painstakingly mull over, well, what's this going to mean for the greater world? What is this going to mean for characters that I'm interacting with and stuff like that? Like, there are some very big moments in the game where I'm just like, I don't know here. Like, what do I even believe in as a man here? What do I do? What do I do?
I don't almost ever do this in any kind of game like this, but there was a choice I made where I reloaded and I was like, I don't like that. I don't like what happened with that choice. I got to redo it.
I always found it interesting as well, where the game presents you people will react to you because you're some unknown being. But you're people are oh my god, they might run away in fear or feel uneasy around you. Then for me, I was just walking around bro, you're a snake, you're blue. Why am I so different here? I don't understand. I have horns coming out of my head, maybe, or mushrooms or fungi.
Yeah, I got mushrooms on my face.
Yeah, but you're blue. What's wrong? What makes me so special and everything? So it's very interesting with this game.
Yeah, I do like the it's not subtle at all, but the themes of life and death, reincarnation, what it means to die, what it means for what a soul means and stuff like that. There's a lot of great storytelling and themes in that really, once again, gets you to think about it.
The idea of a plague of the soul is really interesting too. Yeah. I don't think that's something I've ever really seen in a fantasy game.
No, and just the plague, creating a sickness that slowly and deliberately eats at you and just drives you insane, and then you become quote unquote part of the living lands, and you must be expelled and stuff like that. I think it's just a lot of fascinating stuff, and it really grapples with what does it mean to like keep a hold of your humanity and not be an outcast within your township and stuff like that. It's really fascinating stuff that I tip my hat to Obsidian for really making me care about a world that is kind of brand, like at least this corner of the universe brand new, and within hours I was like, this is crazy. I feel a lot of things about these characters in this world.
Yeah, 100%. And going back to that interview that you had with Carrie, Steve, I mean, now that we had this time to play this game and we've experienced the lore, now we know how Annihilation plays into this and how they pulled that inspiration from that world, and it translates so well to a video game. Like, I'm surprised it's taken this long to have that translation, but the Living Lands is basically Annihilation, and I love that. Like, I love the scenery, I love like the imagery. It's just so incredible. You don't see anything like that these days, and it's just like I'm always discovering something new, and I'm just like clapping. I'm like, that's from Annihilation. Like, that's inspired by that, and that whole sickness is definitely from the movie. Like, I feel, or from the book, wherever you want to look. But like, yeah, I see the references, and like it is a great film book to reference.
Yeah. Did anyone else have any other thoughts, comments about the game that we haven't touched on?
The art direction's great.
Oh yeah,
art direction's phenomenal. There's a place you go in the zone you're in now in Shatterscarp.
Yep.
When you follow the main story, I don't know if you've gotten to the like mages place yet.
Yeah.
Oh man, the art design in that area,
so cool.
Holy cow, incredible.
Yeah.
One of the most impressive things I've seen in a game in like the last year.
Sure. Yeah, no, everything about it, again, intentionality is being able to craft these different dungeons and zones and stuff like that, and make it very curated, make them different and stand out from each other. Like the second area, Emerald
Stair.
Yeah. One of the most gorgeous places I think I've experienced in a video game, where just the fluorescent lighting, the different color contrasting, and mixed with all this flora and stuff like that. I thought it was like one of the most beautiful places to explore. Yet it's ultimately very dangerous at the same time.
Yeah, the game is very, very beautiful. It's like I said, and you can tell like they just with the whole presentation, once again, we mentioned like just how the music will amp up, or if you're just simply traveling and looking at the water. Like it's a very beautiful game.
Agreed.
Yeah, I have nothing bad to say about it. I think it's probably one of the best looking Obsidian games out there. 10 out of 10.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Easily, way above and beyond what anything was in Outer Worlds or its DLC and everything. Like, I think that this is one of the best looking Xbox games, probably period, in my opinion, just based on the art direction alone. I do have a little issue with some of the facial animations of characters and the hair, especially. I think it's just, it's the same argument I have with so many different games, that it's just so hard to render character faces and especially hair. It a lot of the times just comes out, but when you look at the full spread of the game, the art direction of different enemies, the environments and stuff like that, I think this is one of the best looking games on a console right now.
I think they even poke fun of one of the characters, because one of them, like, you'll look at one girl and then you meet the other girl, you're like, did you just copy and paste the same girl? You're like, oh, I look familiar to you, don't I? You're like, yes, I'm her twin and everything. I was like, oh wait, what? I thought you were just being lazy. Like, what's going on? They're like, yeah, I look familiar to you, don't I? I'm like,
there's actually more than one quest that does that.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. I know the one you're talking about. Any other thoughts on everything before we start wrapping up?
For me, I kind of wish that obviously truly grateful. Huge thanks to Obsidian and Xbox for allowing myself and everyone here. I think I could easily say for allowing us to try this game out. For me, I kind of wish I had a little more time, because like I feel like this is also a game that is also better experience just by taking your time as well. Like I don't know how fast you guys are going through it as well, but I feel like it's also a game that I'm like, man, I wish I just like take my time to explore a little bit more here. Cause I just felt like I'm always like going off in the distance and on the map, finding new things and everything. But but then I had to remind myself, oh, there's a deadline around the corner as well. So this is definitely a game that's like meant for you to explore and like take your time with it and have a good time. So
yeah, no, I agree, because I think that, well, I think the luxury of having a podcast and having the ability to discuss this gives us a little extra leeway to just be like, well, I didn't finish the game, I'm going at my own pace to enjoy it and everything, versus having to, you know, write a finished review and be like, hey, listen, I powered through the main story, this is my thoughts and everything. But I do think that, yeah, I wish that given a better timeline of stuff, and granted, I had been traveling and took a few days away from me playing, but I wish that, you know, by the time we got to this kind of conversation, we could be talking about, hey, how did your game end? What are your differences? Because I think that's the big conversation regarding this game, is how much ownership of these choices and these consequences are really going to play into what happens at the end. Because that's the stuff I love about these games, whether you're looking at Outer Worlds, Skyrim, Fallout, New Vegas, any of these games, it's all about how do your choices stack up and where do you leave the world off at the end of all of this.
I do think too, this is a game that people might be talking a lot about in like November, December, because unfortunately it is not coming out at the best time.
No.
Case in point, I have literally 4 other games I'm reviewing right now. So I did have to play through it very quickly, and I agree. I wish I had more time and could go more leisurely. But
it could be a Ubisoft thing where they gave us Outlaws 4 days before embargo, right?
It could be worse, yeah.
It could be worse.
Yeah, I do hope it gets the space it deserves, or at least gets some resurged interests after everyone gets past like Monster Hunter and stuff, you know?
Yeah. I feel like word of mouth is going to go a long way for this game. I think also this kind of RPG is a very specific to a lot of people's tastes, where Monster Hunter is very specific to a lot of like, I don't know if there's a whole bunch of crossover versus the cachet of maybe Monster Hunter's name versus Avowed.
Yeah, and we haven't gotten an Elder Scrolls in, I don't even remember how long. That's how
13
long.
years.
13 years. 13 long years. Yeah.
14, actually 14. We're going on 14 years because it was 2011. So yeah,
I think Elder Scrolls 6 was announced before this was announced.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is insane to think. So I do think that anyone that has been having that itch of, hey, you know, even going back into saying like, oh, well, the Fallout series really really got me jonesing for a game of this kind. I really want a new Elder Scrolls. I hope that a lot of people check this game out, because I think there's so much value here, whether it's storytelling, it's combat, it's exploration. I think a lot of great stuff is here, but
it's definitely game of the year contender for me. I already feel that.
I do too.
It's going to be a toss up between this, I'd say, and Monster Hunter, and whatever other big games.
Yeah,
GTA 6. We'll see about that.
Maybe Outer Worlds 2. Maybe you know, in 10 months or whatever, we'll be talking about Outer Worlds 2 as well, and maybe we'll see a back-to-back contendership.
And that's what I'm really curious about, like, because they're gonna be competing with themselves, like which one was better, Avowed or Outer Worlds 2? Like, I mean, you can see that being like a big discussion. So,
yeah. I mean, that's a good place to be in if you're a studio. You know?
Just clog up your own category. You know,
exactly.
We can't lose. It's all our games. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But no, I hope people go check it out. And as we start to wrap up, Hayes, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. If people wanted to connect with you online, read your work, where could they do so?
Yeah, most of my work's over at inverse.com. You can also follow me at Soulfleet, SOLFLEET, on mainly just Bluesky these days. So I'm just going to say Bluesky.
Hell yeah. All right. Yeah. And Marcel?
Yeah, you can find me on a gaming network. Of course, you can find myself with Steve and other friends of ours on gaming podcasts as well. And you can find me on Marcel Dee on Bluesky as well.
Bobby?
Yeah, B. Pashalides, Bluesky, consolecreatures.com on Bluesky. Just follow us on those on YouTube and check out the podcast. Every podcast platform.
That's right. Yes. And you can find me across the internet at Asvikvari, and we'll be back with more on the latest video games and, other conversations. But we appreciate you all for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.